Good afternoon and welcome to today's July 10th meeting of Strategic Priorities, Communication and Intergovernmental Cooperation. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, could I get an approval of the agenda? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, the notice I gave at the last meeting on the mental health issue, the information came in on Friday. Chantel didn't get it, so can I add it to the agenda?
Yep. So we'll put that under new business.
Yes, please.
Okay. You okay with that, Deputy? Yep. And Councillor McKinnon was planning to be here. He's en route, but we're having technical issues, so we do have quorum, but we will continue on. Chantel may try and get a hold of him again, but we'll continue on with our committee as such. Okay, approval of the minutes for June 27th, 2024.
Moved.
Moved by His Worship, seconded by the Deputy. Any business arising from those minutes?
None.
No? All right. So our first item today is the naming request of the Kent Street Entertainment District, and we would like to welcome in Heidi Zinn from Discover Charlottetown, and she's joined by Mike Ross, the co-owner of Hop Yard and Bioko downtown as well. So thank Mike for coming in. And Wayne Long will be sitting in for Laurel Lee. Laurel is homesick, unfortunately, so Wayne will be pinch hitting for her. So Heidi, maybe we'll turn it over to you and or Richard or whoever to see where we start.
Sure.
Okay.
So I am assuming that you all have the background, probably more than you would like to have, on Kent Street and the development there. What started with a beautification project by way of getting that overhead lighting infrastructure up kind of continues to evolve. And as we always planned, as part of the initial design, was to have large street banners on the lampposts on the street, just to help give the street a little bit of I would call it an unofficial brand. And in the development of the project, we were informally calling it the Kent Street Entertainment District just because it was a very on-the-nose name for the area and the types of businesses that were on the street. And as the process evolved and it came time to kind of, talk to the merchants on the street and ask them what they felt was an appropriate name, it seemed that this name had some staying power and everyone felt that this was a really good name for the street, just because it's not tricky, there's no secrets, it just says exactly what it is. And in the interest of providing, wayfinding for visitors, Kent Street Entertainment District seemed really appropriate to represent the very types of entertainment businesses on the street. So that's really the background. I don't think I realized that it would need a formal process. I should have known better. We're not looking to change the street name or change anything formalized. We just want to call it this on the street banners and then informally in marketing material. So that's kind of the background, and I don't know if, Mike, you want to add anything?
Thanks for having me.
Mike, could I have you come up to the mic just so we can get you on the public record? Thanks.
Thank you for having me. We opened up Hop Yard in 2016. When we did that, I sort of looked into the history of that area. I believe it used to be called Dizzy Block, that raced around Great George down to Grafton in a circle and then back down Kent. And Myron's, when Milton's Old Spain was there, I think there was a nightclub up top. Entertainment district for us is, I guess, the end result of not only by us, but some sizable private investment in that street. Since we opened Hop Yard in 2016, I believe there's been 16 restaurants just in that block. One block from us has opened up. Entertainment district, to me, Charlottetown, downtown, you have the waterfront, you have Victoria Row, and then the entertainment district would be the third one up. That would offer something different, as different as the other two offer from each other, as an opportunity for us to work together as a group of 9 restaurants. I mean, we're talking about a craft beer bar, we're talking about a craft beer bottle shop, an Italian restaurant, the hotel, which has been an amazing bonus for everybody on that street, the Trailside Music Hall in the back. I believe there's talk of a movie theater going in the basement of the hotel. Pony Boat, which is an adult arcade and probably one of the most popular spots for the young people to go. And then obviously Hunter's Corner with their 3 operations are sort of the legends on that street. So an opportunity for, as Heidi was saying, that we can informally use that as the description of a third popular area of downtown Charlottetown, also allowing the businesses to work together to put together programming, so we're not falling on top of each other, with the lights going up and the banners, just a cool spot. I mean, you look at every tourist city, like if you go to Nashville, you go to Music Row. If you go to New Orleans, you go to Bourbon Street, all vibrant. I mean, every city's got one. Even Halifax has Argyle. Just vibrant areas, and all of them a little bit off the beaten path. So we're excited to be a part of it, and I don't know what the process is, but I told Heidi I definitely put everything I've got behind it, and we've built a couple street festivals there. I think it's a very bright area for the future of Charlottetown. Thank you.
And I'll just add thank you. One area that really spoke to me when I visited on a best practice mission many years ago was in Asheville. They have the East End Arts District, and
Sorry, where's that, Heidi?
in Asheville, in
Oh, Nashville.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they have the East End Arts District, and it was in kind of Asheville has so many beautiful parts of the city. This particular area was kind of more of a warehouse district. It didn't have some of the architectural elements of other parts of the city, and it really happened organically, very much like the budding of businesses in that condensed area on Kent Street. And they named it the East End Arts District, and they really felt from a tourism perspective, it was really helpful in having something that was, again, it wasn't tricky or, it was just on the nose. It just told visitors exactly what it was. They knew they were going to an arts district and they would find a lot of artisans. So kind of in that vein, yes, it could be a Bourbon Street, because I know that there was maybe some questions around something maybe a bit more abstract. We could do that, definitely. I think, that was an option. But I think there's something to be said about just very clearly stating what it is to help people for the purpose of wayfinding. And it incorporates the actual name of the street.
Okay. Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Your Worship.
So Heidi and I think, go back to 2019 in that room next door when we sat around the table with some of the business owners and operators about the town, the tourism accommodation levy, and how we have to make sure that the Airbnbs are part of that collection. Well, you know what? 4 years later, 5 years later, they're part of it. Took a long way to get there, but we got there. And that 3% on each room rented, or each house rented under Airbnb or hotels, motels, that goes all to a fund that subsidizes Discover Charlottetown, meetings and conventions, Prince Edward Island, and surf. So nothing goes to the city, so we're there to promote. I've always been a big promoter of of Discover Charlottetown, Destination Charlottetown, just like Destination Halifax, Destination Calgary. And of course, fast forward, we come to the last council where we had the proposal to put heritage lights, banners across the street, stringing from one building to another. Then we found out Veterans Affairs of Canada, there was some obstacles. So it was rejigged, and we come up with lights that could hold the actual banners. And then we thought we were going to do the whole street, but now I think we have, Mike, is it 6, 8 lights there?
Just a point of clarification, that was based on the fire department.
Yeah,
That was
no,
the
no,
only
but,
section that we were
but I'm
able
just
to-
giving the history
Yeah.
of our commitment, the city of Charlottetown's commitment to making this area work. And we are committed to it. And I am committed to it. That's why at the last meeting, I said, let's just put the brakes on. Let's try to finish the whole project. And the deputy also knows in the last council, we provided $500,000 of funding to put the facade on the Fitzroy Parkade, which is to be lit up, still is not lit up. That's going to be an additional cost, but that should be part of the cell package. So, Mr. Chair, correlate that to my history of the area. I grew up in that area on King Square. My father was part owner with Jack Brown and another partner of the old Jolly Night and Rendezvous restaurant. I'm sure you remember that. And that goes back to the 70s. And that street was very vibrant. Myron's, you had the Eaton store, you had Zeller's, you had DB&J, you had plenty of stores. Of course, DVA came along, built a new structure. It's called the Daniel J. McDonald Building. And then this past month, we were all out to Calgary for the FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities annual meeting, Mike, and we're all down on Stevens Avenue. Stevens Avenue is phenomenal. It's a pedestrian mall. And of course, I always wonder, where did the name come from? So I asked, and I actually did a Google on it, and Stevens Avenue comes from the first president of Canadian Pacific Railway Lines. So I said, well, okay, great connection. Then you mentioned Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street is named after one of the first Frenchmen, because Louisiana is a former French colony, and it was sold to the United States. And that dates back to 1718. So the history, is very important on how we sell our city. Because we are not just a city, we are a capital city. We're one of 14 capital cities. And the other big point is that we are an historic capital that goes back to 1765 that also has an act of parliament representing our role in the formation of this country with the Charlottetown Conference. So there's so much that we can do. So again, Mike, I want to continue to work on this project. I want to see all those lights, right down to Kent, Great George Street on Kent, down to Prince Street, the whole thing done. Let's get it done. Let's do it right. But this is an evolution, and I think Heidi mentioned that it continues to evolve. And that's what I'm saying. It continues to evolve. And I'm in no rush to give it a name right now, because what I want to do is finish the project. Get it done, and that includes the lighting for the facade on the Fitzroy Parkade. And then we can name it, maybe it can be Myron Street, after Myron Bell. It was the old Spain restaurant. My mother used to hang around there in the 40s. Again, the history is there. And it's part of the old city. It's part of the 500 lots. So I know you mentioned Asheville and some other places. This is not Asheville. This is Charlottetown, birthplace of a nation, a capital city, and very, very proud of its history. And I think that's what I want to do, Mike. I want to make this part of that proud history that we have here in this city and everything that exists south of Houston to the water. So I'm just asking Heidi, Mike, fully supportive of it. We can do the research. We can get the Natalie Munns down at our Heritage Department to do a full research on what are some of the possibilities for naming this street. But for the meantime, let's get the work done. Let's finish that lighting project. That's what I want to do.
So-
And get the banners up. Thank you.
Can I
Go
go
ahead,
ahead? So just to clarify, the banners, I guess this is where there's a bit of a discrepancy in what we're saying. I think there definitely exists an opportunity in the future to have a more formal name. If ever we were going to put some kind of cool art across the street, some kind of archway, I think it could have a name like that. But part of this initial project, especially because it's so limited now, it got so reduced in size and scale, was to have these big, colorful banners. So these banners were really are going to help to tie it all together. And our only ask was just to put basically in big letters Kent Street and then like as a subheading Entertainment District on the banners. I don't think that that restricts us from naming it something with some kind of historical significance if that's the direction that the merchants and the city would like to go. I think for our purposes, this is part of completing this project. So our request, to be clear, is not to have an official name, but just to have street banners that say Kent Street, Entertainment District. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I think.
Heidi, it makes sense. It does. But you know what? What we could have on those banners is also great things happen here. Because that's our motto. Great things happen here in this great city that we call the capital of Prince Edward Island, the birthplace of a nation, an historic capital that was established in 1765. Heidi, no different. Montreal is an historic city. And I know that Quebec City, they treat how they look at their old city district, like behind the walled city, the old Quebec. It's distinct. C'est une région, une place qui est très, très distincte.
And they call it Old Quebec,
Correct.
on the nose,
And we call this the 500 lots.
right?
So may I jump in on this as somebody who relies on this block to feed my kids? And I love what you're saying, Mayor. I think we're 100% on the same page, 100%. And there's such an opportunity at that end of town. Brett and I were talking yesterday. It's crazy. We opened up, it seems so long ago, but we've been in this COVID and post-COVID position now for longer than we've opened Hop Yard. Like we were, 3.5 really good years at Hop Yard, and now 4 bad years at Hop Yard. And as crazy as it sounds, the lights and the banners mean a lot to us. In the short term, we did the parking garage. Well, you guys, the city did the parking garage, which is amazing. We did the hotel, which is phenomenal. DVA is now being done. DVA being closed cost me and my business $300,000 a year, on top of COVID, on top of the recession, disastrous financial situation we're in. We've been sort of riding this, Mayor, I'll do anything you want me to do in research and help out. Heidi's been phenomenal. You guys know Heidi better than I do. It's been a hard, long slog. And we've been waiting for 4 years for a bounce. This has taken a lot longer than we had hoped, but I do understand everybody's position, and Mayor, like I said, I'll work with you. I think you're bang on. There's an opportunity to do something really special with that street. But man, just getting lights up as a guy who's got to do this stuff for a living and do stuff on the fly, lights and banners would make an unbelievable difference for that whole street. So,
Lights and banners, I don't think I heard his worship say the lights and banners weren't an option. I think it's more so, he was hesitant with the beginning of a brand that might be more difficult to undo, if it starts to become Kent Street Entertainment District. So correct me if I'm wrong, Your Worship, I think it's undoing a brand. I think the banners and the lights are great. I think that Kent Street on those banners is amazing. I'm really torn on the whole entertainment. I totally understand your direction. I mean, I'm not a marketing expert by any means. I don't know if there's, it's a tough one. I guess it's something that would have to move on to council for further discussion and to make that decision. And I'm certainly prepared to move it on to council for them to make that decision today. But, I mean, banners and lights, absolutely. I don't know, like Kent Street on them, I can totally imagine that. I don't know, it's a tough one. Yeah, you guys are the experts, so if you have any additional information, share it with me. Thank you.
So did you want to put a motion on the floor, Deputy?
Well,
To move this on to council?
I think either way, it has to go to council. Council makes the decisions, we just do the work. I mean, I have no issue with it, with putting a motion on the floor to move this on to council for council's decision, for sure.
Okay, but we should have a recommendation here from the committee.
Right, I see. Right, so we need a recommendation to move it on to council.
Well, what, are we supporting it or are we not supporting it?
Right, yeah.
I think that's
That's a good question.
that's,
Right.
I think, what has to be ascertained here today.
Right, yeah.
If I may, I just want to make sure that we are in fact on the same page, because I agree with the mayor and I agree with Mike. I think that there is an opportunity to continue to grow the street, to finish the lights, to give it some kind of name. Again, the entertainment district is just a defining mechanism for that little section of lights. I mean, we have been calling it that in marketing materials already, and probably will continue to do so. And I think we're well within our rights to do that as a marketing organization and defining areas of the city. So yeah, to me, and many times I don't understand city approvals and how they work, and I don't envy all of you guys for having to make these decisions, but to me, this doesn't seem to be a decision that would have to go to council. Like, it's just a subheading on 6 banners.
Yeah, so Heidi, sorry, Mr. Chair, again, Stephen Avenue was named for the Canadian Pacific Railway's first president, Lord George Mount Stephen. Stevens Avenue, that's what people know it by. Victoria Row, that's what they know it by. Bourbon Street, that's what they know it by. Heidi, I give you a lot of credit for what you've done with this Discover Charlottetown. My wife still talks about the Scarecrow Festival. Everything you've done has been successful. And I know you understand branding. That's your background. And that's not my background. I'm a teacher of 30 years, and I worked with a family business. So that's where I come from. But I know the area. I lived in the area. My 7 of my family still live in that whole area. So I get it. It's just I want to finish the project, Mike, and I do. And I think we have to go the next step. Price out those remaining lights on Kent Street. Price out that lighting of the facade on the Fitzroy Parkade. And let's get the banners up. And if we have to put the archway that they have in Victoria Row, that's the other, as you said, it continues to evolve. So, Heidi, I guess what I'm looking for from you and Mike is a compromise. What's the compromise for us to all move forward? And as the chair says, we need a recommendation, right? And to recommend just to move it on to council, I don't think that is a recommendation. I think what a recommendation is, what can we work out? What can we work out as a collective group, business owners, marketeer, formidable, and how we can work with this council. Is it responsibility of council? Yes and no to me, but it's now here, it's public, your live stream.
So would it be helpful if we added, like, so it didn't sound like one chunk of a name, like Kent Street Entertainment District? Would it help if it was Kent Street and then in small letters, like, is your entertainment district? Or just so that it was less like a name? I'm just trying to,
Yeah, like, or what about Myron's Street? Or what about Veteran Street, because Veterans Affairs is down there? Like, there's so, as I said, Natalie Munn, her research background for this city is phenomenal. And I just, like, if we delay it by a month or a few weeks just to get some kind of a branding, something that we can go with. That's what I'm asking. But this is a back and forth right now.
yes, no, and no disrespect intended, but nothing with the city takes a month or a few weeks. Everything is such a long process.
You can't blame us for the lights. No. I'm not waiting. No. You may laugh, but we were all in right from the beginning, and it did go off track because what transpired from the business owners, especially the biggest owner on the street, Veterans Affairs, said, no, you're not attaching anything to our building. So you had to reconfigure how to run those banners across the street. So this is respect to what you're doing, and I think we deserve, that has to be reciprocated because we've always been on board.
And I know you have. I certainly know you have, but I just want to clarify, DVA was very much on board to have the lights attached to their building. It was the fire department that said you cannot attach lights to buildings. It didn't meet fire code. There had to be a space between the buildings. So it was 100% the initial, there has been many, lots of issues with the project, and I will be the very first to admit that because I am the one that deals with them. But yes, certainly the initial delay was as a result of safety concerns, which, we did our best to mitigate. So yeah, I'm not sure how we move forward, but I think I would like to get these banners up. Again, it is a really small section. There are only 6 lights. Initially, as we said, they were supposed to go all the way down the street. I would love a commitment from the city to make it a priority to finish that street. If we're looking for a recommendation to council, maybe it can be that it becomes a priority to finish that street because there's a lot of operators on that street that, to Mike's point, could really use a little boost. And in terms of moving forward, I can't get my head around what really the issue is with putting the name of the street on the banners in the interim, because I think naming a street based on history takes a little bit more time and thought. So I guess I put it back to you folks.
I have a
Go ahead.
thought. So if we're worried about the whole branding thing and all Heidi wants to do is put Kent Street banners up to give it that feel and look of an entertainment area. So right now, the recommendation says that council support the rebranding of Kent Street. And we don't want to rebrand Kent Street. We want you to be able to have a look and feel of Kent Street. So what if we just take the wording of rebranding out and say yes to the banners that say Kent Street, entertainment, whatever the wording is, because that's not the brand. You're just defining what it is, and we stop referring to it as a rebrand? I don't know. And
I think
then-
that's an excellent idea. And that was maybe my bad for using that
Yeah.
terminology.
Then everyone, and then we can still move it on to council. The council support the installation of banners on Kent Street that would state that it's Kent Street with a little tag on the side that says Entertainment District, and that we also support that we work with Discover Charlottetown on, on future completion of the street, rebranding, street names, and all that other razzmatazz we talked about. But in the short term, you get your banners up, so there's a look and feel for the summer and the fall for, I don't know, does that sound like a,
If I might just, I've got a group of 35 walking in my restaurant right now, so I got to run. But it's the color, it's like, we believe in Heidi. Heidi has led us as a group for a long time. I 100% agree with you, Mayor, that we can do something really, really cool on that street, and I'll do the research myself and turn it into you personally, and we can have a chat as a group. But honestly, for me, for this summer, if there was red banners up that just said Kent Street and had the logos of all the buildings or all the restaurants, I'm good with that, but honestly, I've got 35 tour operators who are coming in for a speech from me.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say, Mike, listen, you have three directors here. Director of Finance, Administration, Director of Public Community Services, Director of Integrated Growth. So if we want to get something done with this street, finish the lights, do the lighting on the facade, we have to make a commitment as part of this naming process. And that's what I'm committed to. I'm committed to, and I'm sure the deputy would agree, we're all committed to getting this done. And yes, Heidi has done a great job. Look, we've had our differences. That's what I like about her. She's very free in her opinions and her ideas, and I appreciate them, just as she appreciates, I think she does, on what I have to say
I
back
do,
to her.
I do, yeah.
So let's find a solution. If you have some ideas, I would like to turn this, if Mike Russ can send this down to Natalie Munn, she can start looking at the history of the street, and we can work something out, but in the meantime, let the banners fly.
I love you guys. Hannah, hi, you're awesome. I do have to go. Thank you for having me. Good to see you. Thanks for your input. That's great. Good to see you.
And shake hands with the directors, because, they're the guys that work behind the scene.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's just amazing. Eh? Good stuff. Drop by for my time.
So, based on that,
Let
are
the
we
banners
saying,
fly.
go
I just heard
ahead.
let the banners
Here,
fly.
I guess, I don't have a vote in this, but I do have some thoughts on it, and I do wanted to share Councillor McKinnon's sent me along information. And I'll just read it here just to get it in the public record. As Chair of Economic Development Committee, he would like to raise a question on other parts of the city. He supports the naming of the district. However, he feels that Victoria Row is also part of the entertainment district. He would like to put a committee be struck to look into further naming of the various districts of the city. We have an historic district, we have a retail, recreational, etc., and that he thinks it's a great idea, but the whole city should be considered and done at the same time. So I just, for the public record, I wanted to have Councillor McKinnon's, he's not here to add anything further, but I did want to get that out there. As far as I'm concerned, I think we're overcomplicating things right now. I think what I'm hearing is a solidified, unified message from the various operators in that entertainment district, which is what it is. And I think when we have that, I think it's incumbent upon us to try and support the businesses who are driving the economy in that particular area. It's interesting, Heidi, that you mentioned, I also work as a part-time tour guide. And when I drive by there, I refer to it as the entertainment district. And that was prior to this happening. I drive down and I say, here's our entertainment district. So if people are coming in Charlottetown, that's what I've referred to it as. Not by any intention, it just came out of my mouth.
It's organic. That's the point. It's organic. Like
Right. It
natural.
was nothing, I said, if you want to go out nightlife, this is where you go. Not to say, I mean, Vic Row has its own thing, but it's distinct. It's not Kent Street. Vic Row is not Kent Street. Vic Row is not the waterfront. Kent Street isn't the waterfront. So I think really what we should be doing now here is moving something forward to say that we support the naming, temporary or permanent, whatever it is. I agree with you, Your Worship, that I would love to find something that has a real cool name to it. I love the name of Vic Row. And if anyone says, where do you want to go tonight? Let's go to Vic Row.
Yeah.
And if there is something that long-term, you have, and Mike have said, we're open to changing that. So I think for here and now, to get something going in the interim, let's move. Let's make this happen. We can work on the finishing of the facade and all that sort of stuff, but the collective catalyst here that I'm hearing is let's move on the naming and let's get the wayfinding
Wayfinding.
banners, wayfinding banners in place. So that would be my hope, is that we allow this to get going and we move on it and complete the other tasks as they come about.
If I may just add one more thing. I think to your point, there's really something to be said about a name that happens upon a place organically and that the group of businesses feel so strongly about. And again, it doesn't need to be a permanent name, but it's just a defining, a defining name for the street. Even if it becomes a subcategory to a more historically infused name in the future.
So Kent Street will be prominent on the
Yes,
banner. Kent Street.
Yes,
Yeah.
Kent Street is the whole,
Yeah.
like, it's the whole
And-
width of these big
Yeah.
banners.
Entertainment districts, for me, it's Peaks Key, it's Victoria Row, it's downtown. I don't refer to anyone. Peaks Key has an historical connection because it was the old Peaks Wharf. But I do want to add, Mr. Chair, that I want to support what Councillor McKinnon is stating, that we have to set up a group that's made up of whether it's management, definitely our heritage officer, our heritage department, to look at not just one part of the city. We're playing piecemeal here. Let's look at the whole district, whether it's the downtown or the uptown that we're trying to create on out on north of University Avenue. Let's look at the big picture. That's where we have to go. We can't be just, okay, today it's Kent Street, tomorrow it's going to be Prince Street. Let's get something that identifies or shows that as an historic city, as the birthplace of a nation, that we have connection to our past that brings us not only into our present, but projects into our future. So, look, I'd like to incorporate something. If we have to go with a resolution, which I think we have to, I would definitely move that banners fly with the Kent Street as the prominent wording, and that we follow up with historical research to identify a name that would be fixed and permanent, like Stevens Avenue, like Bourbon Street, and so forth, or Old Quebec is like the 500 lots, so that's already done.
I think I would just add, that I think we need to be cautious about having a top-down approach all the time, even when it comes to naming. There's something that is really beautiful about a name that comes from the people that are on the street and care about it now and happens organically. Sometimes when we impose names on things, they aren't taken to with quite the same love and care as when things do come organically. So I would just add that as a side note.
I would just counter by saying Stevens Avenue, I think, didn't come organically. I think it came about, just like Bourbon Street. Yes, organically is very authentic, I think very true to, and reflects the owners, operators, and those people that live in that area. But again, we're looking at a whole city and how we want to market and brand the whole city. So that's why I'm using
Yeah,
historical
understood.
data. Thank you.
So what about, I'm sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
What about if we take the recommendation and we just remove one word, and that's the rebranding word, so, and then leave the rest as it is, so that Heidi can get her business done, and we can also move forward on the long-term wayfinding of the whole city, and that's a cool word I'll plan to use a little more often now. Anywho, so if we just said, council support the installation of banners on Kent Street between Kent and Great George and Prince, all that stuff there, that it will state in big bold letter, Kent Street, and in smaller letters, entertainment, and maybe that's way too much information to put in a recommendation, but something along that
Can
line.
it just be something like council support the naming of Kent Street between George Street and Prince Street as the Kent Street Entertainment District?
But I don't think we're naming today, Chair. I think what we're doing today is she just wants to move forward with her banners, and she wants to be able to put it on there. So as Heidi said, we're not really rebranding today. We are, I mean, we're evolving, and she's allowing this to take place organically, which makes sense. But we're just not, we're not confusing everyone yet with rebranding. Does that make sense?
Yes, and if I may, I actually thought the initial issue was that we had signage bylaws that didn't allow banners to be up for more than a certain amount of time. So I actually thought that that was really the main issue. So are we not supporting that these banners that say Kent Street be left up basically year-round? Like, I just want to make sure we're supporting the right thing, right? Because aren't we only supposed to have signage up for 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I'm going to ask Wayne to jump in here for a second.
Mr. Chair, in the downtown core, there are a number of street banners which fly at various times throughout the year. Those permissions have been given from the city's planning department to the economic development, tourism and culture department. And the banners really focus around products and events that are driving tourism and prosperity on our city. At times, permissions will be given to causes that have a profound impact on our community, such as Run for the Cure, as an example. So I would think that these particular banners that Heidi is referencing would be outside the guidelines that deal with a 10-day period of flying. I think this is a completely different subject matter in terms of timeline and identity, and therefore wouldn't have to adhere to these particular guidelines that we impose on the users, on the city broadly in terms of the downtown core.
So permanent as opposed to temporary.
I personally don't have the authority to say permanent, but I don't
Right.
think that they should apply to the rule of a maximum of 2 weeks flying.
Okay.
Well, we have our.
Long-standing.
We have our Director of Planning and Heritage here with us, so he may be able to speak to that. We just don't want to turn around and find out that, oh no, now this has to move on to Planning and Heritage as well, and then, here we go again.
Michael, chime in there.
Yes, I think we would just want to indicate that it's, exceeding that typical time period, and council would have the authority to exceed that.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we get all issues covered here, so I'm not sitting back here in a
That's,
couple of
you,
weeks.
no, I mean, that's what we want. So what we're looking at supporting Heidi, Discover Charlottetown, the local businesses to continue on with their mission of establishing the wayfinding banners. And let's move that along or promote that or support that. And if there is further discussion to continue, Discover Charlottetown's open to that, the local businesses are open to that, and we'll see if there may be a name change that would come down the road, or maybe it stays the same. But it's not really committing to anything. To your point, Heidi, about local ownership, resonating with the local businesses and all that sort of thing. And I would certainly supporting the local businesses in terms of finding something that works to help them.
Thank you. And just to be clear, Discover Charlottetown actually doesn't have an opinion. Like, I am here representing the group of that businesses. So I'm just their servant. I'm just doing what they ask.
And Chair, we just need to make sure that we don't confuse by using words like rebranding and renaming. And this is more of a wayfinding exercise, right? Yeah, okay. So I would move that verbiage onto council.
What's the resolution?
Well, I think what we're looking to support is the recommendation, the council support.
Okay.
I think we're stuck on rebranding or naming or whatever it is. I think we just have to change whatever wording has to get there in order to move this
Right,
along.
that's correct.
Because we're supportive of the wayfinding banners, we're supportive of the initiative.
Permanent installation of
Yeah.
wayfinding banners.
Right.
So then, the recommendation could be that council support the permanent installation of the wayfinding banners on Kent Street that would indicate that it's Kent Street and that it is an entertainment district, and not putting in words like rebranding and renaming, because that's not what we're doing.
Sure. You've seen this, right? So you can see here on the, Kent Street is really.
Again, we have Victoria Row, we have Peaks Key. Why not just the Kent Street District? The Kent Street District.
I can't answer that question on the fly. I think entertainment was important to the businesses on the street because they felt that it would collectively make them a draw. Like, I mean, if we're being honest, it's a little bit more rambunctious than Victoria Row, and Victoria Row is kind of more like the Gentle Island vibe, and I think they wanted to be the entertainment district.
Peaks Key is Peaks Key, and it's a pretty rambunctious place at times.
Well, if you talk to Liam, not anymore. Kent Street stole all their clientele.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
This is what he said to me over lunch the other day, so it's not a secret. I mean, he was just saying how he needs to kind of rebrand and find a different market.
So the permanent banners, Mr. Chair, are permanent banners, so it's going to be Kent Street. Unless you change the banners. Again, I think we're complicating this, really. Let's,
Are we ever?
yeah, like, come on. You know, it's something that was thrown onto us at the last meeting, near the end. Well, it came as a new item, and like, it's so fast-tracked that there's no flex room here. Like, we're trying to work with this, Heidi. Like, I'm trying to find that soft spot, that compromise. And, you know, it's going to be fixed signs, it's going to be year-round. Like, this is what we're learning on the fly.
No, that was part of the initial proposal. Like, it was all, to have the banners was always part of the initial proposal. We just hadn't done, and that was on me, we hadn't done the formal request to have them up year-round, which is what we actually thought this process was about, and then included the verbiage, I guess, that would be on the banners. So maybe I'm a bit confused. I actually thought that we had reached a compromise. I thought the deputy had presented a compromise. Are we still following that train?
We're still following that, but
Okay,
it's
okay,
just permanent signage. So that's what we're trying to figure out now, because that's another wrinkle to the process.
Well, our director, Mike, said that it could be included in the resolution for council to approve permanent signage. Is that correct?
That's what I would suggest, given that it falls outside of the bounds of the typical program that Wayne referenced earlier. You know, council has the authorization to deal with signage in the city limits, so I would proceed as such.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, and just chatting with Wayne here, we may want to use the term year-round signage versus permanent, and just the indication that it's not specifically a rebranding or a naming officially. It's really just permitting the signage that the merchants and operations are looking to promote their district.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll put a motion on the floor to move that
Sure.
to council. And we've got the public record that we've discussed, so we know that if staff write it wrong, we can have it corrected before it goes on to council.
Sure.
Because we all are on the same page. We're not rebranding, we're not renaming the street, we're putting up year-round signage. Am I missing anything that's going to say Kent Street and then in little letters, Entertainment District?
With an intent
With an
to
intent
look,
to-
do the research. Mike has already volunteered,
Correct.
and also to adhere or respect Councillor McKinnon's request that this is a citywide issue. We should be looking at it, Mike Russ, through a planning, through community services, Let's do it right. And let's get the project done. Let's finish
So
this
I
straight
move
off.
that.
Okay, seconder? You second that, your worship?
Second it is.
Okay. Done.
We have to take a vote.
Well, okay, vote.
I'm against it, so you break the tie.
Okay, I vote for it. So is that the official record, or what is it? Huh? Jeez. Okay, thank you, Heidi, for coming in and clarifying, Wayne for pinch hitting, and Mike for chiming in as well, too. So Kent Street Entertainment District it is, and good luck with the next steps. Heidi, one more
Thank
thing.
you, everyone. I appreciate you guys very much. You're good partners.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, we will find a great historical name for it.
Look, you're a compromise. You're good, Heidi.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Next item on the agenda, your worship, it's your,
Do you have the package there?
I just have the,
Resolution?
I just have the Chantal printed it off for me. I don't know, Deputy, if you've seen it or not.
It's in your OneDrive. It's on your OneDrive, the resolution from FCN.
Oh, it's on the OneDrive, okay. I didn't check, I didn't,
So, Mr. Chair, if you look at page 3 of the package, it's the mental health crisis response in Canada
yeah.
resolution. This came about at the meeting, the FCM. There was a mental health workshop that was excellent and very well attended. And three presenters, one from Montreal, one from Edmonton, and one from Abbotsford, BC, representing the Canadian Mental Health Association. Edmonton was represented by Edmonton Reach, and Quebec talked about the $50 million that they were receiving from the province to address these issues of mental health crisis, drug addiction, and misuse of alcohol. And if you look at the resolution, it talks about calling on the federal government to provide funding to provinces, because you know as well as I know, constitutionally, provinces are responsible for 2 social responsibilities: health and education. And the feds, the federal government, provides funding through, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, it's called the Canadian Social Development Fund, which channels money out to post-secondary institutions, hospitals, to ensure that, and medical services, to ensure that provinces can keep up with the Medicare Act. So we're asking here, and I'd like to, again, Mr. Chair, modify it a little bit. It does look at increasing the responsibilities to municipalities, whereas local governments in Canada and their police services in collaboration with community organizations are increasingly pioneering innovative approaches and partnerships to divert crisis calls from police to more appropriate resources. And I just jumped down, resolved that the FCM calls on the federal government to collaborate with provinces and territories to provide funding and support for local governments to implement innovative pilot projects for mental health crisis response, such as enabling partnerships between mental health practitioners, community organizations, and police to divert non-violent crises involving mental health, homelessness, and substance use away from police responses where appropriate, and further. And I just don't go down to the last, it's there. Did you have time to look at it, Mr. Chair? I know it came in yesterday. I don't know if the deputy did also, but
Actually, I just looked at it today. I didn't, I must have missed it, or I must have been looking at the old file when I was looking at my online version. Anyway, what it sounds to me is we're looking to support FCM, to push for the collaboration, for the support for municipalities. Personally, I think it's a worthwhile initiative to get behind. I think we can have that further discussion at the council level to see if they support it as well too. But I think for here and now, I don't think should be a whole lot of discussion about it. We're looking to provide support at the local level for our residents in the area of mental health. So I don't know how you can argue against that.
so, Mr. Chair, could I ask, this being the 10th of July, ask you and the deputy mayor and Trevor just to review it. I think this falls under the Director of Community Services, correct? I don't know. Maybe as the acting CAO.
It'll fall under me for today. How's that?
So I just want you to take a close look at it, and maybe we can modify it, and if we have to, we could have it at a noon-hour meeting, emergency noon-hour meeting, to finalize a resolution to go to council on the 4th Tuesday of this month.
Personally, I'd like to get it into council's hand as quickly as possible. I don't feel a need to reconvene a special meeting about this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. When the rest of the council members get it, I think they can have the opportunity to look at it, suggest any changes to the resolution or the contents. But I think it's pretty clear we're being asked to support implementing programs and changes that will help our residents at the local level. I personally don't think there's any need for another meeting to discuss that. I think what we should do is move this forward and have the council have the discussion at that time, put it in their hands and see whether council is supportive of it. I don't think we need another meeting to reconsider it.
This, correct me, Chantel, if you may know, but this would not go out to council immediately. This will go out with the package that we send out for the meeting on the.
But always send the information to council ahead of time.
Okay. Again, I view that the federal government is responsible for Medicare. Medicare is not just about physical health, it's about mental health. So I think this ties into asking the federal government to assist all provinces and all local municipalities, whether they're fully serviced or not fully serviced, to assist with this issue that keeps to be growing, and we have to deal with it. Find answers.
So do you want to make a motion, Your Worship, that we support and endorse this initiative?
I do move it, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay, second.
And I would second it, and I don't, after reading through the Mental Health Crisis Response in Canada resolution, I don't even see where there needs to be any changes to it. I think it's spot on as
I think
is.
it's fine, too.
So I would second that resolution to move this on to council.
Okay,
Recommendation.
so those in favor? Both? Okay, thank you. All right, so that will move on to council as is for their consideration, and we may make changes possibly later on. Okay, motion to adjourn. Moved by His Worship, seconded by the deputy. Thank you for coming. Thank you. And have a great day.